Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the next video in the I Just Did a Thing series, where I'm going to show you how to take a creative approach to pivoting and designing revolutionary changes in your content and your business. I'm Penny. I'm your guide through this process, teaching you how to tap into your creativity so that you never run out of content ideas again. Because here's the thing that I like to tell you all the time, and I will repeat it again because it is just so important. It's more than just understanding how to create better content. It's about understanding creation isn't going to happen to you. It's going to happen because of you. So let's move on into the next chapter of the I Just Did a Thing book that I have written. If you would like your own copy of it, by all means, I would love for you to get your own copy of it. You can find the link in the show notes below this video today. Because here's what we want to talk about today. I want to talk about, we're into chapter 6, how to disrupt the pattern. And what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is your success with making changes in your content development is directly connected to your ability to creatively solve where you are right now so you can get to where you want to be. And I shared with you in the last video, and I'm going to actually put that link into this video too, so if you haven't seen it, I want to make sure that you see the last one that I did, where I talked about creative problem solving steps to help you become a problem finder in this content development process that we've been discussing. And for you to connect this problem solving work with your creative energy so that you can actually create better content, you need to do these two things. You need to, number one, be consistent with your repetition and reinforcement. And number two, learn the ability to disrupt the pattern. The consistent repetition and reinforcement was from the last videos, actually the last couple of videos, and I can put those links down below in the show notes as well. But I want to get into this whole idea about how to disrupt the pattern. Because by now I think you understand that you need to retrain not just your body, but your brain to make this big shift in your content development process. I shared with you some steps in some previous videos about how you can move through this process, and I shared with you a story about consistent reinforcement. But this thing about disrupting the pattern, that is one of the great big pieces that I suspect a lot of these programs out there and a lot of these online DIY things are just like, here's a template to download, here do this, here do this, here do this. But they don't share with you about what happens in your brain, about how you can disrupt the pattern. Because here's the thing. When you first started learning about this process, I shared with you that you've got two choices. You can either go into autopilot and do the same thing that you've always done, or you can disrupt your patterns by thinking differently with something that I refer to in that front area, the decision-making part of your brain in the prefrontal cortex. That's the area that's like right behind your forehead. You know that moment when, you feel like your head hurts so much because you're thinking so hard and it's like, oh my God, and you always put your head up right above your eyebrows and you're like, oh, my brain hurts. That's your prefrontal cortex. And your prefrontal cortex is probably in a lot of pain when you are trying to make a heavy decision. So I want to talk to you about this. I want to talk to you about this whole thing about patterns and the prefrontal cortex and how all this works and what the heck this has to do with your content development. I want you to think about your patterns, your habits. Almost everything that you do in your life is somehow developed from a habit. Like where you go walk your dog to maybe how you make your coffee in the morning. Initially, there was a really good reason why you started doing these steps in this specific pattern, but eventually you stopped asking yourself why and you just did it. A pattern is your learned response to a stimulus. And that stimulus can be anything from a person, a smell, a taste, or even a noise. No matter what the stimulus is, your brain and body react the same way. Like the way you might hit the snooze button 3 times when your alarm goes off in the morning. That's a response to a stimulus. You hear the noise, you hit the snooze button. You hear a noise, you hit the snooze button. And like on that third time, you're like, okay, I got to get up. Enough of this. You have developed a morning pattern. And here's the thing. We have all been raised with a series of patterns. Think about it like this. As kids, we had bedtime routines and actions that we did every day at school. As adults, we kind of shifted our desire for these patterns into the way that you drive the same route to work every day or go down the same aisles at the grocery store every single week. Your brain loves it when you can develop a pattern. It makes you feel safe, and it makes you feel like there's some sort of order to your world. And that's one of the reasons why we develop these patterns. And patterns aren't only in your physical world. Your patterns can also include your beliefs, thoughts, and feelings. And while you can't always control the stimulus around you, you can control the way that you respond. And since your brain is programmed to feel safe in these patterns that you created, this is one of the main reasons why it feels so hard to make a change. Your brain wants to feel the comfort of the patterns, and any resistance that you cause can get you to react sometimes physically. Like when you have that feeling of butterflies in your stomach. The first step to move out of autopilot is to reflect on your day and think about the actions that you do every single day. Notice the pattern of the actions that you're doing without even realizing why or how you're getting them done. That moment of consciousness about the actions that what you're doing is a huge step forward in learning how to disrupt the patterns. And what I mean by that is that moment when you become aware. The awareness is there. And what that's always the first step. And I can honestly tell you that in my development through this whole process. I'm going to honestly tell you that just because I'm aware of it doesn't mean that I automatically can snap my fingers and change it. I wish it was that easy. Boy, do I wish it was that easy. Nothing's ever that easy. But the awareness, when you become aware of it, so then maybe it's not going to upset you or concern you for a whole week. Maybe it'll only cause you, physical feelings and concern for like an hour or two. And I'll tell you what, I'll take an hour or two over a week any day. So I want you to think about all of the things that you're doing, the actions that you do every day, and notice the patterns. Become aware of this. And also notice how your body starts to physically react when it resists the changes you're going to make. I'm going to be honest with you. When you start to become aware of these patterns and you start to see the things that you're doing, you're going to get uncomfortable. You're going to get uncomfortable. But I want you to understand that these feelings that you're going to have, this uncomfortable feeling, it's just temporary. It has to do with the fact that there's an awareness there, and it's something that you're going to make a change with. And so your body is going to be fighting it to go back into that comfort, to go back into that comfort. But now that you're aware that you need to do something differently, it's like the two of you and your body, and you and your brain, at war with each other. And don't give in to the uncomfortable. That is one of the best pieces of advice I could give to you and give anybody as you're moving through this process. Do not give in to the uncomfortable. Like I had talked to you in that one video before where I discussed about the creative bodybuilder that you are. You're going to feel the soreness from the lifting from this heavy weight. But when you're able to recognize the pattern in your thoughts and your feelings, the stuff that's not working and that stops you with all of excuses that you make, you're going to be able to choose better how to change your thoughts to get to where you like to go. I'm sure you've heard this expression before, that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you react to it. And if we truly believe that we have control over how we react to something, then it opens us up to more opportunities, because you know that you have a choice about how to respond. So once you can accept that you're going to feel discomfort, like fear, worry, anxiety, and that you'll come to a better place afterwards, that's when you start moving through the familiar and into thinking differently. Then, when you're really, really ready to disrupt these behavioral patterns within your brain's pathways, you are going to feel the breakthrough. You're going to feel it physically, you're going to feel it mentally, and you're going to feel it emotionally. And as you've already learned, your brain is hardwired. And I talked about this at the very, very beginning of this series, and I want to touch on this again. It's hardwired with the peptides. It keeps you doing the same thing, thinking the same thoughts, even all of those bad ones, even all that ruminating, even all of that what if, and oh my goodness, and oh my gosh, because your body will always go back to its comfort box. I know I experience this all the time, and I catch myself. I'm in the awareness stage. I can honestly tell you, I haven't 100%, disrupted my pattern, disrupted all of my thoughts, but I'm so much in the awareness pattern, the awareness part of it, that when I catch myself and I'm feeling bad and I'm feeling all yucky, and I refer to it as the heaviness. I feel the heaviness sometimes for a day or two, and I'll catch myself and I'm being aware of what I'm doing. That allows me to flip the script in my head, to flip the thoughts in my head. Okay, this is what this is. This is where you're going for. You're always going back to your comfort box. So let me start that sentence over again. I want you to make a conscious effort to override these neural pathways that we have developed in our own bodies. And you're finding yourself going into like an opposite direction than you would, because you want to go towards the familiar. But I want you to disrupt those patterns. And the sooner you can start disrupting the pattern, the easier it's going to be to free yourself of the bad thoughts and move you closer into what you really, really want to do with your business and how you're going to share your messages online. I like to refer to this, and going back to like a really, really one of my favorite episodes on the Seinfeld show. It's this one called the Costanza Rule. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Seinfeld, but bear with me for a minute. If you have not watched that episode, I would highly recommend you look this up, because this is exactly what I am talking about with regards to how this process worked. And it has to do with George Costanza, obviously. The episode was actually called The Opposite. So look for George Seinfeld show, The Opposite is the name of the episode. I don't know the episode number, but that's what it's called. So George finds himself disrupting his actual patterns, not just, for his business, but like his whole life. I mean, after years of failing at all things in his personal life, to the different jobs that he's had on the show, George has this like aha moment. And he realizes that when he follows his instincts to do something, it always leads to like some sort of disastrous outcome. George comes up with the idea to do the exact opposite of what his gut instinct is telling him to do. So are we surprised when George does the opposite of what he would otherwise do? He actually finds himself on the right side of every decision. In the rest of the episode, we watch George completely disrupt his pattern, from what he orders from lunch to how he interacts with his boss at work. His usual routine of finding things that go against him turns into this unfamiliar feeling of success. So for this process to work, I strongly suggest that you're open to following George Costanza's way of thinking. And as you continue your journey, your creative journey through this, I want you to think about how you are going to move forward, how you're going to disrupt your pattern, and recognize that there will be times when the best action that you can take is the exact opposite of the one that you've always chosen. That is a really important piece right there, and I want to repeat that again. I want you to recognize, as you start to develop this opportunity, you develop the awareness of the patterns, and then you see that you're going to look for ways to disrupt them. I want you to recognize that there will be times when the best action you can take is the exact opposite of the one that you always choose. It's extremely important to trust your feelings around your choices, and I get that. But I want you to pay attention to more than just, what I've always done, and this makes me feel better, and I'm going back into my comfort box. Pay attention to what your gut, what your body is telling you. Don't always look towards the familiar, but remain open to new ideas. And when you do that, I promise you, you're going to see the creative energy come into your business, come into your content, and do more than just, writing out these messages that nobody sees, that nobody can connect with, that nobody resonates with. Because as I said to you at the very beginning of this video, it's about understanding that success with your content development, which will lead to success with your business, isn't going to happen to you. It's going to happen because of you. So thank you so much for joining me today on this creative journey. If you've enjoyed this content about creativity, I hope you'll consider subscribing to this channel. You are magnificent, my friend, and let me be the first to say, I'm proud of you. Until next time.